Since my last video covering underrated 90s horror sequels did so well, I kind of thought that I'd bring you another video in a similar vein. 5 horror movies that need a sequel. First up, Brain Scan. I don't think you need an introduction to this film, especially if you've been watching the channel, as I covered it for last year's Staunch. But for those of you not in on the fad, well, this is an edgy tale about little Eddie Furlong, who's a loner weirdo gamer who finds an interactive horror game on Fangoria of all places, where he soon finds himself in a murder mystery unlike no other, at the behest of a cyberpunk would-be horror icon in The Trickster. This movie could have countless sequels. In fact, it's set up perfectly if we look at the end of the film, where potentially Brain Scan would keep going on to torment whoever plays it. And it also hints that the whole thing may have actually been real. I don't know, kind of weird. The stuff with the dog and the foot, it's a little strange. Either way, Furlong, I'm sure, would reprise his role as Michael. I mean, hell, he even appeared in another film with his buddy forever Kyle recently, and I can't help but think that T. Ryder Smith would leap at the chance to play the Trickster again. So how would a sequel be done? The obvious route here would, be some kind of online game and maybe Furlong's son or something getting into Brain Scan, something like that. But that's too easy. I think a neat idea would be that Furlong's Michael, well, he just couldn't resist the game and wound up hunting it down and playing it multiple times, becoming a kind of Brain Scan champion. And, maybe there's some kind of online task force on their trail, as the game is kind of like the thing of legend and the body count has been adding up. And maybe Furlong inadvertently finds himself becoming an online demon of sorts similar to the Trickster. Kind of like, the full 180 there. And we can get a cool fight scene at the end or something. Up next, Elves. A dull teenage girl hates Christmas so much that she has an anti-Christmas seance in the woods where she accidentally cuts her hand. And naturally, this causes Nazi demon elves to rise up in order to finish their master's plan. Oh, and Dan Haggerty's here too. Now this is indeed a silly little holiday horror, but it was also one that I grew up with and absolutely adore. Just a strange little monster movie that seems to get more and more notice as the years go by, which is amazing. Elves introduced me to Dan Haggerty, and legitimately scared the hell out of me as a kid, as these elves are effective to say the least. And the insane plotline of dormant demon elves that are doing Hitler's bidding, and then you got a drunken former mall Santa and Aryan cults, yes. The perfect holiday film. So how would a sequel be done? Well, believe it or not, this film also sets up a sequel, as the elves' evil plan to impregnate a virgin teenager, you heard that right, well, it seems they succeeded, as the last thing we see is an embryo in her womb. So I'm thinking for a potential sequel, maybe all these years later, the cult is still at it. And when they discover that the plan was successful years ago, they must track down the demon elf, the original one, who was maybe being harbored in the woods by Dan Haggerty's family or his son or something like that, who has sworn to gain revenge on the cult. So he's kind of waiting for them to show up, if you will, while guarding this demon. But when the cult does show up, they come in heavy with other versions of demon elves. And we have ourselves a wacky, violent Christmas in the woods. That, or maybe a remake would be sweet. I absolutely love my next pick. Tibor Takic's underrated noir slasher, I, Madman. An unassuming bookworm discovers a bizarre series of tales featuring a monstrous killer. As she keeps with the series, things start to get real, and she must uncover the mystery, which involves some strange things, including one heck of a third act where the film basically turns into a monster movie. I do feel that this one is largely forgotten, although it does have its fans. I have it on Laserdisc. And genre favorite Clayton Ronner appears. You can't go wrong with that guy. The story is pretty tight-knit, though, and open shut, if you will. But the seminal killer here, he is just too iconic to not use again. And this dude is awesome. He uses a straight razor to collect parts for his face, and there just seems to be more lore here that is unexplored. So how will the sequel be done? Well, here I think the obvious route would be like, there's more books out there. There's more I Madman books. And some different summoning spell that's needed later on to put this guy to rest. Maybe something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a library somewhere getting digitized, and the young crew doing it stumbles upon a manuscript, or maybe even a sequel to I Madman. We can get meta here. And we see our seminal psycho return. Not much more needed than that. My next pick, I just can't get enough of. The Stuff. The Stuff? Well, it's the stuff of legend as far as I'm concerned.
Warning. We interrupt this presentation with the following urgent message regarding the stuff. If you see it in stores, call the police. If you have it in your home, don't touch it. Get out. The stuff is a product of nature, a deadly living organism. It is addictive and destructive. It can overcome your mind and take over your body. And nothing can stop it.
From the immortal Larry Cohen, a tasty tale about some stuff from the ground that makes its way into store shelves, where it begins to turn its fans into some unsavory creatures, a true 80s classic and a masterclass in satirical horror. It's always been my favorite Larry Cohen film, although I gotta say I'm a fan of all of them. All of them. But there's something so enduring and timeless about the stuff. Throughout the film, we see the stuff rise to prominence and eventually be defeated, or so it seems, as some stuff remains on the black market. Can't get enough of the stuff. So how would a sequel be made? Well, again, many ways to go here, but I'd say keep with the black market aspect. Maybe add some kind of mutation in the mix, as people are trying to reproduce this stuff in varying ways, with varying results, if you will. Maybe some strange knockoffs, All the while, someone figures out the original recipe or finds an original batch, and maybe the cure is somewhere in that mix, or the cure to ail people who eat too much of the stuff, you know what I mean? But then, I don't know, maybe that original batch expires, and they go full monster movie with some kind of strange mutations going at it. But, keep to the same style. Really, maybe some more comedy. Nobody but Larry Cohen would really be able to do it now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Of all the films discussed tonight, a potential sequel to The Stuff is the one I want to hear from you guys about. Let me know in the comments. And last but not least, one of my 90s favorites, Disturbing Behavior. The new kid in Cradle Bay, Washington, stumbles across something sinister about the town's method of transforming its unruly teens into upstanding citizens. Maybe it's hormones, or maybe it's the town's local doctor's new method to control kids of the area from showing any disturbing behavior. What a fun movie. Now, not to get too into it or whatever, but the version of the movie we got was not the one we were supposed to get. A lot of studio interference here, but the fact that it still works so well, can you imagine seeing that first cut? The film owes nearly everything to the success of X-Files, and the film is painfully mid-90s in the best ways. The soundtrack rules, it's shot well, the cast is spot on, and yet again, the film is perfectly set up for a sequel. Early on in the film, the group of friends deserts their quote-unquote leader, Gavin, played by... Early on in the film, the group of friends deserts their quote-unquote leader, Gavin, played by Nick Stahl, who tends to ramble on about the town's conspiracy to the point where they kind of get sick of hearing it. And Gavin soon finds himself the next victim. Overnight, he goes from a moody grunge kid to a blue ribbon preppy. Not to spoil much, but he survives the third act, and at the film's end, we see he's a teacher at a new school with a little gleam in his eye, and he's seemingly looking to continue the program. So how would a sequel be done? Well, most of the cast probably wouldn't come back or anything, I'm willing to bet. But Gavin, played by Nick Stahl, he's honestly primed to return to the series, as, this direct-to-video kind of stuff is kind of his wheelhouse now. And I'm assuming this would be a streaming property, if anything, being an MGM title and them having a streamer. MGM, hit up Nick Stahl. So yeah, I think the way to go would be essentially to remake the movie. Only this time with Gavin as the teacher and no doctor character, you know what I mean? and just the teacher and the students, and it's kind of like this versus thing, and the kids can kind of uncover things, go back to the old hospital, maybe even have Marsden and Holmes' daughter involved. Maybe she's at the hospital. I don't know. Have a good time with it, and maybe reuse some elements that were lost in that original cut of the film. I, for one, think that this version of a sequel would do really well. I do think it's possible. I mean, we've seen bad sequels to 90s teen classics already. Like that Craft sequel everyone forgot about. I mean, there's even a Universal label dedicated to ruining some of their classic films. So who knows, I guess, but something tells me Disturbing Behavior is a property that is unwarrantedly being held in dormant status, a franchise with some money to be squeezed out yet. So there you have it. Just a few horror movies I feel deserve sequels. Let me know your recommendations below. I have a few more, and I'll probably get to those or other similar lists if you guys want to see them. Again, like this video, let me know what's up below, and hit that notification bell. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and check out my 2020 award-winning documentary, Forever, The Untold Story of Rock and Roll High School Forever, featuring interviews with the cast and crew. See you later, guys.